Welcome to the formulize video about select boxes. Select boxes come in a few different shapes and sizes. They are most commonly used as drop-down boxes and also list boxes. We have one in our form right now here, the what type of animal drop-down box. That is a type of select box. So we'll look at the various options that are available for these. We can go to the administration side, configure that element, and see how it's put together here. So the first choice is how you want it to appear, drop-down box like it is right now, or you can switch it to a list box. If you wanted it to, say, be a list box with 4 rows, it's got 4 options. Then we can save that, and instead of being a drop-down like we saw it a moment ago, we can reload the form and it will show up as a list box. You can pick that way from the list instead. Essentially the same as a series of checkboxes if you set it up that way. But you can also allow multiple selections when you have a list. That's the big advantage of a list box, is if you want to let people pick more than one. Well, yes, excuse me. The way it is right now is exactly like radio buttons, and in terms of letting people select only one thing. Now that we've turned on allowing multiple options, now it's like checkboxes. You can pick all or a combination of them. So those are the main ways that that select boxes can behave, either as drop-downs or as these two different behaviors of list boxes. You can also control the rows. If you pick a larger number than there are options, we only have 4 options right now. But if you pick a bigger number, then it's just going to default down to the how many you actually have. If you have more options than the number of rows that you pick, then you will get a little scroll bar here, and it'll look like this. Essentially, you'll be able to scroll in the list. But we only have a few options right now, so that's not it's not necessary. So the other way that you can do this, there's a third option, is autocomplete box. So essentially all the same options are in effect. We've defined our 4 options there, but you can have the users interact with it as an auto-completion box. And if we do that, then it will behave like this. So what type of animal? It's a text box that users can type in, but if they start typing B, it's going to say beaver or black-footed ferret. Those are the 2 choices that match, and you can pick either one. If you type something that doesn't match anything, it's going to tell you no match found, and it will default to that. You can't just type in something that doesn't exist, or and it's just going to say no, that doesn't match. So those are the different ways that you can interact with the option. You can let users interact with your options, either drop down, a list box, or an autocomplete. Autocomplete is often used when there's a really big number of options, and so autocomplete is very handy for letting people interact with that giant list without having to scroll through it or anything like that. Now, if we just change this sort of back to the way it was there, back to our original settings, there's a few other things that are worth looking at. Well, first of all, you can have different data values in the database, different from what the user is shown on screen. That's summarized here in the note I've highlighted at that point on the screen, and you can learn more about that in the radio button video that goes into more detail about exactly how that feature works. It's useful if you want to have a numerical value or code, or just some value different from what the user sees when they fill in the form, and you want that value stored in the database for exporting to another system, or doing math with that, or whatever it is that you need to do. There's also the resync option. Again, check in the radio buttons video for the full details about that. But if you changed beaver to short-toothed beaver, then you wanted to change all the existing entries to match your change, you could use the resync to do that. Sometimes you just want to remove an entry or you want to reorder them, and so resyncing is, you don't want to alter the existing data, you're just changing the way the form element is displayed, but the existing data stays the same. Other times, you're making a change where you actually want the existing values to be updated, so that's what the resync is for. More details in the radio button video. There's one other option that's worth discussing here, and that is the username option. If we can just remove these for a moment, and if we put in usernames, for example, as the first option, then it's telling us that this will produce a list of users based on certain group limits. So let's do that. Save. And if we reload the form now, then what we get is a list of all the users. There they are. So that's very handy. Obviously saves you typing in the full list of users, and you can additionally do some filtering based on that. There's options here if they're linked. We'll discuss linked select boxes in a future video. But if you are using linked values, or you've used the username option, which we have, then you can control which groups are visible. Let's say we only want to see the volunteers and the rangers. Then we can save that, and we can reload this, and now our list of users is limited to only the rangers and the volunteers. So this is useful for, if you want to have a list of just certain users, you can say, yes, I want a username list and I want to limit it in this way. You can also do things like you can further limit this and make it only groups that the current user is a member of. So if we did that, save the entries, and if we just log out here and log in as, say, Victoria, who's a volunteer, and then Victoria goes to add an entry, then for her it's only the volunteers that are going to show up. So that's there's some useful options there to create situations where the form will respond to who the active user is. There's further an option to include, by default it's including users who are members of any of the selected groups, but you could also say users have to be a member of all groups. Sometimes you have a complex group structure where you might have essentially a matrix where some people are a member of these three groups, and then some of those people are, in addition, a member of a fourth group, but only some of them. And so you maybe want to get a list of users who are only belonging to only the people who belong to both of a subset of groups. So you can you can do that as well with this option. There are various other options here which actually only take effect if you're using a series of linked options, and so we'll look at those in more detail when we get into link select boxes in a future video. But those are a few of the things that you can do with plain old select boxes, just in terms of drop downs, list boxes, auto completes, all the options for different data values versus what the user sees on screen, resyncing values if you're making a change, you want to update the existing entries, and limiting username lists that you see. Last note, I'll just explain briefly. You may be wondering what full names is. That's corresponding to an older feature in Zoops based systems. Zoops and Impress CMS are the two underlying systems that formulize interacts with directly, and full names refers to an option that was in older versions of Zoops. It's called real name in current versions of Impress CMS, and if you wish to use that, you can turn it on in the profile module, the profile part of the admin side. You do that here under profile. So full name just gives users an additional choice of, or real name as it's called now in Impress CMS, gives users an option for an additional identifier. So besides the login name, which is going to be unique to them, and the username, which is what's displayed to other people, there's then this option for real name or full name, to have if you basically want a different identifier from the username. Username might be, John123, but the full name is John Smith, or the username, the real name is John Smith. So that's these two options will just pull one or the other of those identifiers for the users based on which are active. Usernames will always be present. Full names will only be active if if you've enabled that or if you're using that in your current setup. So that's about it for select boxes. And if you want to know more about linked select boxes, which are much more advanced and complicated feature, but very powerful and lets you do some of the most interesting things in formulize happen when you start linking forms together through options in select boxes. That will be covered in a future video.